Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are talking about the staff certification in EF-S-05 Part 2, Special Education Staff FTE report. So we're going to talk about two different reports today, one of them being overall staff certification and the other being the EF-S-05 Part 2. So we are going to jump right into those. Staff certification is for EPS calculations. So before a superintendent can go in and certify all of the staff that have been entered, all of the assignments have to be reactivated in NEO staff. All of the positions were rolled over at the beginning of July, and everyone was moved into a pending status. And so you'll have to go in and update everyone to make sure that they are active, and anyone that has left, make sure that they have left and their position has been ended. So any data that you are looking for here would be things that are entered directly into NEO staff. We're going to talk a little bit about how that data gets updated. I will start this also by saying that we had a very specific webinar about staff data entry. I think it was at the beginning of September, end of August. It might have been the end of August. And that webinar is recorded and was posted on our DOE Data YouTube channel. So you're welcome to go and check that out for those resources as you are doing this work. It may be a little bit more in depth than what we'll talk about today. We're going to do kind of some basics, but more details will be in that recorded webinar. Also, before a superintendent can certify the reports, all of the data needs to be updated on the certification report. There's a section that we'll talk about today that needs to be updated directly on the certification report based on data that's entered in NEO staff. And then any district that does not have a librarian or nurse can use the superintendent in that district role to fulfill that need. So this is just an overview of the staff certification report. We'll talk about the EF-S-05 Part 2 a little bit later on in its own section. So here we go. All staff who are employed by an SAU are required to be entered into NEO staff. That includes contractors and anyone in a sustained, direct, unsupervised access to students position. So anybody that has access to students should be entered in. That does not necessarily mean that all of those staff members are going to be those who are eligible for EPS funding. So if you're curious about that, we do have resources in our appendices that will outline all of the positions that are EPS funded. But all staff, anyone who has access to students, does need to be entered into NEO staff. All of the resources that we are going to talk about today are on the staff data entry and reporting page. So from our MEDMS support webpage down at the bottom, we have a few resources listed there. One of those pages is the staff data entry and reporting page. All of our NEO staff guides are listed there. So how you're entering staff into NEO staff, the manual, the appendices, really great resources available in those. The other thing that we're adding on to this today is the NEO staff instructions. So specifically how to certify the staff certification report. That is available in the on the staff data entry and reporting page. The other thing that will also be available on the resources will be the Special Education Staff EF-S-05 Part 2. So there's resources for how to access that report. So entering staff, when you're entering staff into NEO staff, you're going to go into NEO, go to staff, and then manage staff will be where anyone is updated for those pending positions that need to be updated. If you do not have access to NEO staff and it is deemed that you are required to do this report, you will need to go in and do and have an access request form submitted on your behalf by your superintendent so that we can get you an active or a staff assignment. And you will have to have an active staff assignment in NEO staff already. So someone will have had to come in to NEO staff, edited your assignment, and then that way we can provide you with an access to the staff module to update staff members. So once you're in Neo, you're going to navigate to staff. Your menu bar may look a little bit different than mine, but the staff module is listed up at the top. Once you're in staff, from here, you're going to navigate to update staff. We're going to navigate to manage staff. The staff search is going to be where you're going to add new staff members for your district. So this will be anyone who is coming in new to your school district and maybe has never worked there before or didn't work there last year. But anyone new that you need to enter will be added through the staff search. And then the SAU search is where you'll be updating and adding a staff assignment for someone who's returning to your school district from last year. So that's where all of those positions were moved to pending, that you'll have to go in and update their existing staff assignment for this current year, or maybe end a staff assignment if they are moving on to a new position or they have left the district. So in this, staff search is going to also be where you'll update your highest degree earned. So when you navigate into staff search, you'll search for your staff member using their first name, last name, date of birth, or their staff ID. Once that staff member information has been entered, you can search for them, and they'll either pop up in this bottom section as the person that you're looking for. If they do not, you can add a new staff member. If someone has been employed in a Maine school before, they should be entered in NEO staff somewhere. So if you know that the person is coming from another Maine school and you search for their first name, last name, and date of birth, and you don't have anything come up, you may want to check on that just to make sure you have the correct information, make sure that their last name hasn't changed, or make sure that there isn't a typo on their birthday. So once you have done that, you would then be able to add a new staff member if they've never come back, or if you find the person that you are looking for, that they have been entered there, you can use the actions section to select edit to update the staff member's assignment. So if they're coming from another district, you can edit them. If they are someone who has never been employed by a Maine school, use the add new staff. The other function that you have here would be the SAU staff. And this is where you'll come in, you'll see your whole district, all of the staff members who have been entered in your district, the people who have been entered previously. So you will need to make sure that you're going through all of those positions and update any of them that are listed as in progress will need to be updated. So these are the two different lanes for getting everyone in, entering your new staff, your SAU staff. Anyone in progress, you will need to select their ID number so that you can go in and edit their staff assignment. So, any in progress or pending will not show up on the staff certification report. And if there are any in progress or pending positions listed in this section, in the SAU staff section, it will prevent your superintendent from certifying the data on the staff certification report. So this is a really important section to make sure that everyone is updated and has an active staff assignment so that when your superintendent comes in, they're ready to certify. Highest degree earned is updated again on the staff search page. So we have Appendix C, which outlines all of the different highest degrees earned that you can enter for a staff member. Those are in Appendix C. They get updated in a different spot than everything else. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of this, that if you have an EPS position that needs to have an updated highest degree earned, use the staff search to navigate to the staff member's personal information. That's the reason that it's two different spots, is because the SAU search is position specific, whereas the staff search is person specific. And so updating a person's information goes through the staff search. So you have to go through there to update their highest degree earned. And in order to do that, you will need to use their social security number. So you will need to have that on hand in order to make that update, just so we know you have the right person. And you would do that by editing the person once they show up at the bottom. Again, more detail on that in our other webinar as well about entering staff if you need more information. So once you've navigated into a staff member's assignment and you need to update them, if this person is clearly in progress here, we're going to select under actions, the edit function to edit the existing assignment of the person. Please note that this page here does not get updated where it says add assignment. That would be adding a new assignment. So adding a new assignment is not the same as coming in and updating and editing the existing assignment of the person. If this person is no longer in the bus driver position, you would still need to come in and edit the position to exit or end date that person's assignment. And then you can add a new assignment for them as well. If you are getting any error like this, the Maine schools notice, this is for any district that has not completed the Maine schools application and had full approval gone through. I believe we have very, very few, if any, that are in this position, but if you are getting this error, it is something that you would need to make sure that you're reaching out to your central office to make sure everything is updated. Seeing some questions. I just want to make sure that I'm not gonna hit on those questions a little bit. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna get to some of these questions. So I'm just gonna keep on going, and then as we go through and answer some of these questions, I'm just gonna keep going. So when you're updating a staff assignment, always edit from the top and work your way down. There will be more questions that come up as you're updating a staff member's assignment. So years of experience will populate 1 year. You do not need to increment it on your own. It should be something that is already up to date, so you do not need to update that information. All of the contact information should be accurate as well. This is really important when going in and doing your staff assignments in your district roles. So make sure that you are doing that work and updating those staff assignments with the correct contact information so that when we're calling someone, we have the correct contact information for that person. It is not recommended to use personal information for these staff. So if you have any personal information listed for a staff member, please update it to your school or organization email, phone number, any other contact information other than a personal contact. This information does become public, and there are a few people that we have contacted on their personal device that have gotten rather frustrated that we had access to their personal device when we called that number. So please make sure that that is a school or organization email address and phone number. Once you've updated everything, make sure you save. Save will be in progress still. Submit is what will create an active staff assignment for the person. Salary, stipend, and hourly wages. We've added hourly wages since last year, so make sure that you're updating your hourly wages positions in NEO staff here. So salary is going to be just entering the person's salary amount. A stipend would be just adding the stipend amount. And then hourly wage is the hourly rate, so how much you're paying the person per hour. Average hours per week to best estimate if you have a position that is not a full-time position. And then average hours per year. So that's any worked time during the year. So any time that you're paying someone to be working, or if you're paying for holiday pay, that is going to be something that you would calculate into your weeks per year. So take your total number of school days as well as your total number of paid days for that staff member, and divide that out for your weeks per year. Long-term substitutes do need to be entered into NEO-staff. All substitutes need to be entered into NEO-staff. Long-term substitutes are a one-to-one coverage for a staff member who is on leave. So if you have someone who is covering for another staff member in a long-term position, you would need to select the name of the person that they are covering for. If there is a substitute that is filling a vacant position, there are two different options that you can do for this. They would need to be entered in as the position that they are filling. So if they're filling, let's say, a fourth grade position, you would enter them as a classroom teacher teaching fourth grade. If they are not certified, you may have a violation that comes up for that if they're not certified to be teaching that position. Or you could add them as a substitute, which is not EPS eligible, but you would not get the violation. So you'll have to choose on that one. All of the staff appendices have resources for what positions we collect. So I see there's a question in the chat about a staff assignment for alternative education teacher. If we have that, it is going to be in the staff appendices. I don't believe we collect any data for alternative education. And I don't know that I have Mike here to confirm that information. So I will need to do a little bit more digging on that one. I don't believe we collect that. I will check and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that one either, Allie, but okay. You do have me here as a backup.
Perfect. I couldn't see you. I can see your bubble. So perfect. Yeah, I'm not certain about that one. If there's something in my brain that's saying that we don't collect alternative education teachers, but I can't pull up my resource to confirm that in my brain. So I will need to confirm.
Yeah, I don't believe it's its own position. They would essentially be getting tracked for whatever grades and things that they're instructing in that alternative setting. So I'll do some digging while you're going though, and I'll get back if I find anything.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
So all of the appendices are going to outline different things and different resources. So make sure that you're taking a look through those. The position matrix is really helpful for understanding what's required for each of the positions that are entered into NEO, so that you can have a list of things ready before you go in to enter staff that you already have curated so that you can just sit down and get it done and get it entered. All of the federal funding program codes are listed, highest degree earned, course codes and descriptions, so you can align them with what you have locally. If you have career and technical education, those codes and clusters are listed there. Staff job position descriptions are listed there as well. So if you have concerns or questions about, which position do we align this to, if you have maybe a unique name to a position that is, not listed here, you can do a best alignment of that position with what we have available to you. Appendix H is the endorsement mappings, so that will align your endorsements. So like I have an O2O, which means that I can only teach certain things and so that will tell you that if you were to enter my position into NEO staff, what would I be able to align to in terms of certification. So that way you don't end up with violations there. You can use that, and you can also anticipate your violations if you have someone in a position that is not supposed to be in that position, and you can start planning for how to support that person. And then the last one is district rules. So Appendix I is district rules definitions. So we have a list of district rules that you have to fill out at the end of the staff certification report. And the descriptions will tell you who best should fulfill that position. So let's get into locating the staff certification report. So the staff certification report is going to be under staff. So in staff here, And then under certification is a certification report. Once you're in the certification report, there is going to be something really close to pay attention to up here at the top is that fiscal year. The fiscal year needs to be set to live data. If it is set to 25-26, it's not going to allow your superintendent to certify. It is also not going to allow you to update your district roles. So in order to edit this report, you do need to have it set to live data in the fiscal year. This report is going to list out all of the positions that are available to a school district. So you may have some blanks here, that's okay. But any position that is fulfilled or has an active staff assignment or anyone who's in pending status will also be listed here. So you can see the number of staff who are listed in a position. You can also see the number of in-progress positions that are listed there, active staff assignments. And then at the very end, you can see all of your staff members who are making up those positions. There was an answer in the chat. Alternative education teachers would be listed as classroom teachers. Thank you, Mike, for doing that investigating. So this is a really important report to go through and start taking a look at all of your in-progress staff. That is going to prevent a superintendent from coming in and certifying the report. So any of these staff members would need to be updated. If you wanted to know who this superintendent of schools was that has a pending position listed, for example, you can go over here to the navigation column and view positions. It will take you to a screen that will show you who that superintendent is or assistant superintendent is so that you can go in and get that updated. So start working on those. Your FTE totals and your EPS totals will be listed here once everyone is updated to active status, and you will be able to see who's counting towards your EPS funding. Once you scroll down to the bottom of this report, and anyone who's EPS funded would be listed in the position matrix. This is a resource that's available on our staff data entry page. So you can come in here and see how a staff member would be counted for EPS. Specifically, some of the support staff are listed as either EPS or not EPS. Administrative assistants who are working in a school for example, are considered EPS funded, but a district level, SAU level administrative assistant is not considered EPS funded. So just be aware of that so you can come and use this resource to understand the positions that are listed for EPS purposes and which are not. At the bottom of the report is where you can see you have some aggregate totals of positions. So we can see here way back on the other screen that I had up it's just continuing down. But each of these would be listed out with the total number of staff members who have been entered. So the number of positions is this one here, your pending in progress positions, and then total positions over here on the right. So you would just be able to kind of get a quick glance of the positions that are ready to roll. EPS staff, this is going to give you an aggregate count of all of the EPS FTE totals, again, referencing back to that EPS matrix, so you can see who's qualifying for those. And then down at the very, very bottom is where you would assign your district roles. So this is where you have the drop down. The only time this drop down shows up is when you have this set to live data. So if you're not seeing this, you'll have to scroll back up to the top and update your fiscal year to live data. So all of these positions would serve as the primary contact for DOE. All of this contact information that we would pull from this is going to be updated from the individual's staff assignment. So if the staff's assignment information is incorrect, that is all going to be pulled through from there. So you'd have to update it back in the staff assignment. And there are, in some cases, only certain positions that would map to these designees. So you'll have to just be aware of that you may not get a full list of your staff. You may only get a couple of people. Like, for example, only one person can be listed as your superintendent of schools, and that is your superintendent. So those types of things would need to be, just be aware of that. Once these are all updated, this is a very important step that sometimes gets overlooked when we're doing staff, and I don't want you to lose any of the data that you've entered here. In order to get this updated, you have to select Save. So at the very bottom, the Save button has to be selected in order to certify this report. All of these positions need to have someone listed, or there is not going, or the certification button is not going to be available to the superintendent. So, updating a district role contact. So if the person's information is wrong, this is where you would come back into their staff assignment and update their staff there. So the biggest thing here, we have a lot of people who have reached out to us that we're not contacting the correct person in regard to questions about maybe data. In our instance, it's specifically about data, and I'm not the person that enters the data for staff reporting. In order to update this information, this contact information, this is where you would have to come in to update the staff district role. So you have to update the contact information, make sure everything is right in the staff assignment. And then once you are here, you need to make sure that you save the designees to make sure that we're contacting the correct person. So if there's been a change in staff and someone new is in the role, this is where throughout the year, even beyond certification of this report, if someone changes in one of these roles, then we need to contact someone different. You have to go into the certification report, scroll down to the bottom, update the designee, and save it in order for us to update our contact information. Even beyond the October collection, this is really important to just keep in mind as we go through the year. Before a superintendent can certify this report, I've said a couple of times that there are multiple things that I've kind of gone over that will stop a superintendent from certifying the report. It's not that they won't be able to find it. They'll be able to get into the report. There just won't be a certify button. It will be grayed out, such as this right here on the screen that you're seeing. I hereby have reviewed and verified that the above is accurate and to the best of my knowledge. If grayed out is the certify button. If the button is grayed out, that means that one of the things that are bulleted here has not been completed. Your special education director, prior to the superintendent coming in and updating the or certifying the staff certification report, the special education director has to certify the special education staff FTE report, the EF-S-05 part 2, which we'll talk about next. The district, if there's anyone that's in progress or pending, that is going to prevent the superintendent from certifying the report. So if they're seeing this button, it may mean that there is someone that is in progress or pending. It could also mean that the district roles are not saved or there's a role that is unassigned. There's also another one that tends to get overlooked quite a bit, but if there's anyone in the staff details report courses or staff details report FTE that is identified as needs review, that needs to be resolved prior to the superintendent being able to certify the report. So we've talked about special education director being certified. We'll talk about that next. So that needs to be done. All of the staff positions have to be active. We've talked about how to activate those staff assignments. All of the district roles have to be updated and with a designee. We've talked about that also. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of staff certification is that details report. So let's take a look at the details report so you can know where to find the needs review column. In staff, next to certification is reports. And there's a list of staff details report and of courses and FTE. So there's only one difference between these two reports, and that is that partway down, there is a courses and grades, and then there's an FTE report. If either of these reports identify a need review, that is something that would need to be taken care of prior to the certification of the report. So make sure that you're reviewing this section of the report all the way to the right to make sure that everything has been resolved. That one tends to get overlooked. We hear a lot from people that, all of the staff assignments are active. We see this all here. We've done all of the staff reports, all of the designees. This is the last one where this one can kind of catch people up a little bit. So if you're still not able to certify, your superintendent's not able to certify the report, make sure you go into these reports under reports and make sure you've done all of the needs review. Okay. So that is the this staff certification report. And now we are going to talk about the EF-S-05. I'm going to stop and take a look at questions really quick. So there's a question about contracting staff. If you have students, so it seems like maybe there are two questions listed here. Hey, Mike, could you help me out with the RSU 48 question here? Contracting staff. So if you're contracting staff to work with your students, you would need to have them in NEO staff, but I'm getting hung up on the assistants in a private high school.
Yeah, that one is interesting, Kelly, because essentially staff get reported at the school that they physically work at. So in this case, that'd be the private school. So is that private school one of our approved privates? I would assume they must be if you guys are sending staff over there. So in which case, those schools would be reporting them in the staff module with us. But as far as how the funding works out for that, that's something you probably will need to talk with our finance team about, because that's a little bit interesting.
And then to answer the next question, is there a report that can be pulled that will show that everyone in our district is listed in NEO as their highest degree earned? So yes, that's a great question. Highest degree earned is on both the staff details courses and FTE report. So you can pull a list of all of your staff who have been entered and what their highest degree earned is, so you can see who needs to be updated, so you don't have to go in and check each individual one. So you do have that resource under the report section, the courses and FTE. Both of those reports are going to pull a highest degree earned list that you can take a look at. All right, so that covers all of the questions in the chat. So we're going to move forward into the EF-S-05 Part 2. So the navigation to the EF-S-05 Part 2 is slightly different in that staff members are entered into NEO staff the same way that a staff member is entered in regular education. There is a section in the staff assignment that will ask for amount of time spent solely with students receiving special education services. And so that is going to be the time that is brought into the EF-S-05. So if you have any errors on this report, we're going to talk about how to navigate to the report specifically. But if you have someone who needs to be updated, it will be something that special education staff need to work with the staff data specialist is who I'm going to say, which could be your business manager. It could be your HR. It could be anybody really in your district. It could be a number of people. So just someone with NEO staff access would need to be coming in and updating the staff assignment in NEO staff so that it updates correctly on the EF-S-05. So it's all based on the staff position, what's pulled into this report. But navigating to this report specifically, from NEO, you're going to navigate to special education. In special education, there's a section called Forms, and then there's a special education FTE staff certification, in parentheses, EF-S-05 Part 2. If you need access to, not student reports, sorry about that, that's a typo. If you need access to the special education module, then you would need to have an access request submitted on your behalf by your superintendent so that we can get you access. And in order to do that, again, you have to have an active staff assignment in NEO, which would be entered by someone with staff access. So what does that look like? Once you log into NEO, you'll see this screen. You may have different headers again, but special education is where we're going to navigate. In the special education module, we're going to open up Forms. And at the bottom, there's the special education FTE special staff certification, EF-S-05 Part 2. So we're going to select that report. At the top of the section, it will open up so that if you have multiple organizations, you can select the organization that you want to update or review. And so once you do that, you will submit, and it will pull up your list of staff who are providing services to students receiving special education. So this is going to list out at the top, you have special education teacher. So then you have related services personnel and then special ed paraprofessionals. So this is where you could have an ed tech who's working in your school who's doing part-time with just regular education and then part-time with only special education. And so you may have, you know, a partial person, a partial position that is listed there. So we can see here that we have all of these positions that are listed out. You can see that there's one position that is listed as not fully qualified. And then there are 4 that are fully qualified in the special education teachers. So you can go in and you can actually see who these staff members are by using the details report. Oh, I didn't actually show you where to go to it, I guess. So up here in the top left, there's a view details, which will take you into the list of positions that are making up each of these aggregate counts. So if you're saying, I'm not sure why I have 1.4 occupational therapists, if you click into the details report, it will show you why you only have 1.4 occupational therapists. So in that details report, you can see here all of the positions that are listed. I've done a lot of work with school districts with this report to understand what each of these amounts mean. So full-time equivalency of the assigned position is of the position. So when you enter a position into NEO, you have to put in an FTE. And so if I'm only working part-time, I would have an FTE of less than 1. So if you have someone who's entered only part-time, let's say maybe they're part-time ed tech and part-time school lunch services. So you might have that opportunity where I'm a 0.5 and a 0.5. Of that 0.5 where I'm working in as an ed tech, there could be a portion of that where I'm only working with students receiving special education services. That's a percentage of my partial, which would make it even smaller for this report. So we have the FTE, which is the total amount of the time that I am doing this job. Then there's the percent FTE special education, which is the percentage of time of that FTE, of that 0.5, let's say, that I'm only working with students receiving special education services. That's what's going to show up as my proportion special ed FTE. That's supposed to be an E there. So that's 0.5 times the percentage of time I'm spending in special education only, and that will come out to my proportion special education. So we can see an example of this. If we look down at the social worker position, a little bit, I think it's, yeah, the first social worker position that's listed here. They're only working as a social worker half-time. And of that half time, only 20% of that time is spent with students who are receiving special education services. So if we do 0.5 times 0.20, we get 0.1. So that's only a partial amount of time. So it's even less time that's specific to that. Okay. Amy, I'm gonna have you contact Medem support about that question that you're seeing. Just to take a look at why you're not getting multiple pages. So just be aware that that's how these kind of columns are working together. So the full FTE is the amount of time that I'm actually working. The percentage of that time that I'm working with special education, and then the of a full position, how much would I be working with a student receiving special education services? So just be aware that that's how this report kind of plays itself out. And you may have more than just this one page. If you have multiple pages, you can scroll through them up at the top. It looks like someone in the chat is having issues with that, but we're going to look into why that is not showing. So at the bottom of the report, so underneath all of the total counts, the aggregate counts, is where you would be able to navigate and certify the report if you are a special education director. And so this is the step one before the superintendent can certify the report. Special education director has to come in and certify this section, and they'll just certify and submit to DOE. And once that's done, and once everything else is done on the list of, all of the active assignments, all of the designees, all of the needs review are done, the superintendent can go in and certify. So this is step one to getting that certification process completed. So our recommended steps are that SAU staff with NEO staff access update all of the pending and in progress staff assignments. So everyone was again rolled over July 1st. So everybody is in pending or in progress unless someone has gone in since July 1st to update those staff assignments and make them active. So all of those staff assignments should be moved to active or ended or however they need to be updated. Then once that is completed, assign all of the district roles. Once that's all done, go in and make sure that all the needs review are updated in those staff details reports. Once the reports have been reviewed for accuracy and completeness, then the special education director can come in and certify the EF-S-05 Part 2. And the superintendent can then certify the staff certification. So make sure all of these steps are clearly defined and that you have a communication line with the special education director and superintendent so that they know when the report is going to be ready to certify. And that way they're not coming in and going, my button is still grayed out. Work with your superintendent and special education director to make sure that they know where you are in this process so that you can get that information taken care of. So if you do not have a special education director, if you have an interim or stand-in, or if your superintendent is taking on the responsibility of that, they would be able to kind of proxy that situation to certify the report. But that would be something that you would have to go through, and it would be they'd have to have additional access, I believe, granted to certify and do that work. So there would need to be an access request form submitted. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to look through and just see if there's any that we haven't quite answered yet. If there are questions after today's webinar, please reach out to medms.support@maine.gov. Visit our website. We have a lot of resources for staff data entry, for navigation to both of these reports, and you can take a look at those there. Our webinar today is recorded, and we will post it on the DOE Data YouTube channel. The YouTube channel for this particular webinar is public, and it is linked at the top of all of our resource pages. So feel free to take a look at those. If you have other questions or you want to give us a call, 624-6896 is our number for MEDMS support. And I think that we have answered all of the questions. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. October starts tomorrow, so let's, get those enrollments in, get the staff assignments in, get everything situated so we can get the ball rolling. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.